Alright, welcome back and we are glad you chose to stay with us. Let's continue to inform you. Now, in our tonight's special segment, as we approach World Wetlands Day this Friday, we take a closer look at one of the planet's most vital ecosystems, wetland, and the pressing threats that they face in our changing world in an exclusive interview conducted by our very own Emmanuel Kutosi and James Kamula, a senior principal ecosystems manager with the National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA. We delve into the significance of the wetlands and the dangers that are putting them at risk and the urgent need for conservation efforts. Take a look.
Every year on the 2nd of February, the world celebrates the World Wetlands Day. Very important, particularly and usually led by the National Environmental Management Authority right here in Kenya. Why are wetlands important? That is a discussion that we're having today on our bulletin, and we are joined by James Kamula, representative from the National Environmental Management Authority, to be able to shed more light, particularly on understanding the importance of this day, why it is celebrated, and why you should also be concerned about it. James,
yes,
welcome to our broadcast today.
Thank you.
Perhaps you can begin by knowing what are wetlands.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm James Kamula. I work for the National Environment Management Authority, a senior principal ecosystem management officer. In simple terms, the meaning of our definition of a wetland is that area of land covered, which is covered with water, can be permanently or seasonally. And this water can be salt, be saline, or fresh water, or somewhere in between. So that's the definition of our wetland. Mm-hmm. Examples of wetlands include rivers, lakes, swamps, estuaries, mangroves. All those areas are wetland resources.
Mm-hmm. And perhaps what are the main threats facing these wetlands, and what can be done to be able to deal with the threats that are coming against the wetlands?
Thank you for that. Today, we have quite a number of threats facing our wetlands in this country, across the country. And one of the biggest threats to our wetlands resources is encroachment by settlements and by agriculture. Settlements and the encroachment for settlement, this is mainly urban, happening in urban areas. For example, in Nairobi. You have seen how the river has greatly been encroached. So encroachment, people settling in those areas, encroaching on the riparian zone, or encroaching to create space, clearing and to create space for agriculture. So encroachment is one of the biggest threats. The other threat facing our wetlands is pollution. And pollution is happening in form of solid waste. And also wastewater. For example, you've seen, I'm sure you are familiar with the environment in Nairobi. Nairobi River, look at a lot of pollution in form of solid waste and effluent discharge from industrial facilities. Another threat to that is facing our wetlands in this country is diversion, specifically our rivers. Yeah. In some places in this country, we are having people diverting river water, maybe to do commercial agriculture. The problem is that when you divert without approval, yeah, by NEMA, by getting an EI license, is that you deny the same service, the access of the same water by the downstream community. So we are having illegal diversions of rivers in this country. That's another threat facing our wetlands. Another threat to our wetlands is conversion. Yeah, there is this misconception by some members of the public that wetlands are wastelands. Yeah, that is not true. Wetlands ecosystems are not wastelands. Yeah. And so we need to take care of these resources because of the many benefits that we get from them. And so because of that misconception, you find that some people in some places in this country, they are converting wetlands into places for settlement, converting through reclamation and doing agriculture in those areas. And so conversion of wetlands is another major issue. And so there are so many threats that which are facing wetland resources. Large-scale development projects, for example, like what we have seen down in the coast for over the years. So large-scale developments, for example, if you go to Lamu, where we have the LAPSE project, is being done. This project, by the end of the day, will be having 32 bats. Yeah, do you know where it will be done? In a mangrove ecosystem. Yeah, and mangroves are wetland resources, and so threats by large-scale development projects is also another issue that our wetland resources are facing in this country. And so these are, in a nutshell, those are some of the key threats that our wetlands are facing. And so we need to take measure to protect them. And some of the measures that NEMA has been taking jointly with our stakeholder community in this country is one, by putting in place, we have since put in place the National Wetlands Conservation and Management Policy. Yeah, so we have a wetlands conservation policy giving us a policy direction on the way to take our wetlands resources in this country. That is in place. Secondly, by developing and implementing management plans, because management plans provide the roadmap for sustainable management and conservation of wetland resources. So, with that, NEMA working jointly with the stakeholders, we have put quite a number of them. And so as a government, we shall continue developing and implementing management plans to take, because that's the only way to take care of, to promote conservation of these resources. By also restoring degraded wetlands which are degraded, through by agriculture, by clear cutting of riparian zone vegetation, we can undertake efforts to restore those degraded areas. And so organization, individual members of the public, we are encouraging them to work with us to restore the degraded wetlands in this country, addressing the issues of pollution. Yeah, and for example, like currently in Nairobi, we are working with all those facilities which are located along Nairobi River to make sure that they treat their waste. Yeah, they treat their waste before effluent wastewater before they discharge to the environment. Because when it is released and treated to Nairobi River, you are contributing to the pollution of that river. By doing proper management of our waste, the waste that we generate from our domestic houses, from our industrial establishments, we need to make sure that as a country we take care of our waste, to make sure that this waste, because if it is not properly managed, it gets to our wetland ecosystems, and when it gets to those systems, the services, ecosystem goods and services that we derive from these ecosystems, the services get compromised. And so those are just a few, of some of the measures that we can undertake as individual members of the public, as organizations, to take care of our resources. And so that's what NEMA is promoting.
That's wonderful.
To take care of our resources.
Just take you back. There's something you've touched about, the LAPSET situation being constructed within a mangrove area.
Yes.
NEMA as a body is involved in the policy formulation to be able to guide such things. Is it to say that the LAPSET construction happened without the regard of NEMA's advice, or is there something being undertaken because the LAPSET project is already on course? It's something that is active. Is it to say that there is nothing being done to be able to cater for the impact that was had, particularly on this wetland?
The due process was followed with the proper guidance by the authority, that's NEMA. First of all, they started with the strategic environmental assessment, SEA. was done. Yeah. After say a comprehensive study, EI was done. Yeah. And all that the process led to the licensing of the project by NEMA. So NEMA was on top of things, and the right thing was done. You see, people will wonder, how comes the lab set was done in a mangrove area? In this country, for us to be able to develop this country, there has to be a balance between development and conservation. Sometimes we have to sacrifice a few patches of forest here and there for the sake of development. And so, but by doing that, you make sure that you put the appropriate safeguards, measures, to make sure that what you are losing, for example, by clearing that small patch of mangroves to pave way for construction of the port, you compensate that by doing the planting of even a bigger acreage elsewhere. Yeah, and that's how we took care of what we lost.
So that did happen.
What we lost through the clearing to pave way for the port, by making sure that we plant a similar amount, a number of acreage, what we have lost elsewhere. And so this is a balancing that we do. So nothing was lost. So if you look at the environmental management plan for that project, yeah, we was approved by NEMA. There was a requirement that Kenya Forest Service, we make sure that whatever will be lost by clearing to pave way for the project will be planted elsewhere. And I can confirm that KFS, Kenya Forest Service, because NEMA is always monitoring to make sure that it's compliance with the license conditions. Yeah, with that, KFS have been doing the planting elsewhere to compensate for what we. So nothing was lost.
Wonderful.
Yes. And so we have the project, and the environment is still safeguarded.
And perhaps even for clarity reasons,
yes,
you've talked about the idea of river diversion,
yes,
not being legal unless
yes,
it is approved,
yes,
by NEMA.
By NEMA.
One would want to know,
yes,
what is the difference between me diverting and using this water, and it will flow back to the river, and going to NEMA, who will approve me to be able to do the same thing? Why go through NEMA?
You know why you need to go through us is because there has to be a balance to make sure that, assuming you are doing your diversion of that water upstream to do commercial agriculture, for example, what will happen to the downstream community? You deny them access to the same, to the water. Because in some places, what we have seen in these countries, people divert all the dire river, all the water, to their farms. And so with that, we start getting complaints from the downstream community. NEMA, why are you allowing this? And so to stop that, that's why the drafters of the law, yeah, found it wise to make sure that they that provision that before anyone is allowed to divert, you subject that activity to environmental impact assessment. Why subject it to EIA? Is because NEMA would want to make sure that even if we are going to license you to divert, there is a balance. Yeah, you still maintain some flow. Yeah, to make sure that that downstream community is also able to access that water. You don't divert the entire amount. So and so by doing that, by doing the licensing, we make sure that yes, you have the access, you have the access to the water to do your farming or to do whatever activity requires the water, but still there's still some water flowing. You still make sure that there is water still flowing in the river for the sake of the downstream community. That balance has to be there. Because if we don't do it, if we don't regulate that, then we'll be having chaos in this country. Some people will be having access to that water by diverting all that and ignoring what the downstream community. That's why we have to regulate.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, and yes, looking at the Wetlands Day for this year,
yes,
the theme is protecting our wetlands for our common future.
Yes.
Perhaps you can be able to link where protecting the wetlands and our future comes together.
Yes.
Yeah, what's the link?
Excellent. That is the theme for this year's World Wetlands Day. Do you know why? Why do we need to protect? Because of the so many benefits that we derive from these ecosystems. Is for biodiversity protection, source of water. These are grazing areas. We get construction materials from these places. So these, if we are to realize these benefits from these ecosystems today, tomorrow, and even in future, we have to protect these wetlands. And that's why we have to work together as stakeholders. Yeah, this calls for concerted efforts by all of us to make sure that we protect. We are protecting because of the importance associated with these ecosystems. The benefits, all these benefits that we associate with, all these ecosystems. But we are not just protecting for the purpose, for the sake of deriving the benefits today. Even our future generations, we still require these benefits to accrue to them. So if we don't protect, our future generations will suffer. So we protect so that we can continue deriving the benefits, but as we derive, we also know our future generations to be able. So let's protect for our common future. Yeah.
And among the features that is coming out, particularly within this wetlands, there is the Adopt Wetland Initiative. Perhaps you can be able to tell us how private, public, and even corporation sectors can be able to take a role in the Adopt Wetland Initiative.
Excellent. Thank you for that question. Yes. The Adopt Wetland Initiative is an initiative by the Ministry of Environment working with NEMA to catalyze stakeholder participation in wetlands restoration and conservation in this country. The objective of the initiative is to enhance restoration and conservation of wetlands by encouraging stakeholders to adopt, and champion, champion for conservation of wetlands of their choice. So through this initiative, the aim is to catalyze, because what has been happening before, there's a traditional approach where government sets aside funds and the government agencies like NEMA and the other bodies were like Water Resources Authority. We are doing our routine job every day, but there's so much that needs to be done in this country to take care of these resources. The capacity, the government has a capacity, but it's not adequate. And that's why we are reaching out to other stakeholders, other government agencies, the civil society sector, the general members of the public, to come forward to work with us. And one of the strategies, one of the approaches that we are using to encourage these bodies to work with us to protect the wetlands is by encouraging them to adopt, and they take lead in championing for conservation of those wetlands. And so that's the essence of that's the objective of the Adopt a Wetland Initiative. And so we are encouraging, one, members of the private sector players. It is a corporate world, the industrialists, the banking sector, and all other private sector players. Also the NGOs to come forward to work with us, adopt wetlands and champion for their conservation. Even general members of the public, even our government agencies which are not in the conservation arena, we are encouraging them to come forward and adopt wetland of their choice and take lead in championing for their conservation.
And how do they go about it? What's the procedure?
Thank you. There are quite a number of steps that one applicant or adopter has to follow to adopt the wetland. One is by engaging with NEMA. Why you need to have a one-on-one engagement with NEMA is because for you to understand the idea behind it. We sensitize you and also make you aware of modalities for adoption of the wetland. Once you understand the idea behind it, and you create interest to participate in the initiative, we move to step 2. And step 2 is where we allow you now, since we have created interest to adopt a certain wetland, we now leave you now to identify the wetland of your choice that you want to adopt. That is step 2. On your own. And in the wetland, you can choose to adopt a wetland in the coast region, you can adopt a wetland in western, any part of this country, any wetland of your choice. It can be that swamp, it can be that lake, can be that dam, can be, so long as it's a wetland. After you have identified the wetland, now we move to step 3, where you communicate to us, to NEMA. Because we don't want, we want to make sure that you don't adopt a wetland which has already been adopted. Yeah. So once you communicate to us that as an organization or individual members of the member of the public, I want to adopt a certain wetland, then now we move to step 4, where now we work together with you to sensitize, yeah, to sensitize all other stakeholders around this particular wetland. Remember that the wetland the one you want to adopt. Remember there are, for example, local communities living in that around that wetland, and this community has been depending on this resource for many years. So in a way, they have also been taking care of it. There could also be other interested parties who want to also take care of that resource. So why we should work together is to make sure that we sensitize the general members of the public, the local administration, and other interested parties that this organization is interested in adopting this wetland and working with you to take care of it. That's the aim of the mobilization and the sensitization. After mobilizing and sensitizing all these relevant stakeholders around this particular wetland, together with you as a potential adopter, after we have built that consensus and we have raised awareness, and people now understand you want to come in and adopt it and work with us to take care of it, we now move to the last stage, where NEMA signs a framework of cooperation with this wetland adopter. The reason why we have to sign that framework operation is because we have to define our roles. As you go in, it has to be very clear what will be the role of that adopter in taking care of that resource. So in the framework operation, we define the roles and responsibilities of the wetland adopter, the responsibilities of NEMA, because there are some activities that as you seek to promote conservation, there is find that there are some measures that you cannot undertake. For example, arresting and prosecuting a person who is doing an illegality in that wetland. For example, like illegal logging.
You can't do it
As NEMA, by working with the police, we are able to arrest and to prosecute. But you as a wetland adopter, maybe a private sector player or an NGO,
it's not possible.
You don't have to do those power. So the framework of cooperation will define your role, responsibilities as a wetland adopter, the roles of NEMA in the adoption project, the role of the local community, the role of other interested parties in that. And once we design all and we define all that and sign the framework operation, then now you as an adopter, you take over. But you don't take over and then NEMA takes a back seat. Remember, in the framework of cooperation, we have said there are roles and responsibilities to be played. So in the adoption, we walk the journey with you.
Together.
Yeah. It's only that you as a wetland adopter, you are only now taking lead in championing for conservation of that wetland. But please take note, adoption does not mean, you own the wetland. Doesn't mean that land becomes yours. No.
It still is a public site.
Wetlands are public resources. And so adopting doesn't mean now you own it. No. Wetlands are public resources. You are only working with the government to champion for conservation of it because of the so many benefits associated with it. We want to make sure that those benefits accrue today, tomorrow, and into the future. Those are
perhaps maybe I can be able to indulge you. What if I own a parcel of land and there is a wetland within it? Is that wetland part of my land, or is it now a public site, although it is within my acreage?
Your land, and within it, there's a wetland. Wetlands are public resources. Yes. So that land within your land, is it still a public resource? And so you as a member of the public, as a owner of that land, we expect you, whatever activities you undertake, near that wetland or inside that wetland, there should be activities which are seeking to make sure that it is well. conserved.
Well conserved.
Yes. The activity that we cannot, even if it is in your land, we cannot allow you to undertake in that wetland. For example, like conversion, yeah, conversion for agriculture.
Yeah.
Like we have to encourage you to do good agricultural practices around it. Make sure that there is no siltation. We can't allow you to discharge your effluent to that wetland just because it's in your land. So, even if it is in your land, yeah, you have to take care of it because that's a public resource. We can't allow illegality just because it is in your land.
That is very clearly put.
Yes.
And this year's National Wetlands Day will be celebrated at the Ondiri Wetland in Kiambu.
Yes.
Why the Ondiri Wetland?
Yeah.
Why would you pick on that? And maybe you can be able to also indulge us as we complete, we rather end the discussion on whether the National Wetland Day will also be celebrated across the counties in the country.
Thank you for that. How did we arrive at Ondiri as our wetland of your choice to celebrate, to have the national celebration? You see, the preparations for World Wetlands Day, for these celebrations, the planning, the preparation is usually spearheaded by a national committee, drawing membership from different stakeholders. Yeah, NEMA happens to be the secretariat. So it is this committee, when they sit, they have their first meeting or the second meeting. That's where one of the agenda items by this committee at the inception meetings, when they are starting to plan, is to decide on where the event will be, held. And so during the meeting, the first meeting, proposals are given by members of the committee. And through that, evaluation is done, and members just build a consensus on where to have the event. So what happened this year? This year, I remember, and I was in that meeting, that's where it was, I remember Lake Chemchem in the coast, in Kilifi County in the coast. It was proposed. Gabela wetland in the border of Meru and Isiolo was also proposed. Ondiri was proposed. And it's through that all these members just decided eventually, after consensus building, that's how we arrived at let's go to Ondiri. Next year, you could maybe you'll find ourselves in Lake Obolosat in Nyandarua, or even in a wetland in Marura wetland in Wasingishu.
And I believe you can be able to invite us.
Or in Kaberwa in Bugoma. It can be anywhere, but the decision, members discuss and they propose. And what they propose, that is taken through the channels of NEMA, CEO, and all the way to the CS. When the CS concurs with the proposal by the committee, national committee, we go by it, and that's how we arrived at. Okay. Yes.
Will there be county celebrations?
Yes, there will be. This year, besides the national event, which we shall be having at Ondiri, we shall also be having county level World Wetlands Day celebrations. Actually, our county directors of environment in all the 47 counties, they have since been triggered to make the preparations, and they are working with the county commissioners. They are working with other stakeholders, Water Resources Authority, other stakeholders, including the local communities, to organize those events. So we shall be having countrywide celebrations.
Thank you very much, James Kamula, for that informative session.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarity, particularly on the importance of wetlands. Thank you also for staying tuned for our bulletin, understanding the matters concerning wetlands. Thank you. This is KUTV.